La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti, welcome to La Lanterna podcast. This is yours truly and whatever, Fabrizio, with my best buddy.
What's up? I like that opener. We're going to stick with that.
I just thought to shuffle it up a little bit. I guess excited for the great match, aren't you?
What a result. I know this was a roller coaster. I know on the weekend it felt a little different. After the match, it felt a little different. But I think we're like most Genoani, where after reflection, we're pretty happy that we got a point against Napoli, even if we're welcoming them to the Marassi. So, yeah, I thought an amazing job done by both Gilardino and pretty much to a man, all of the players from Genoa. I thought it was a phenomenal result.
I would give kudos totally to, obviously, the entire team, but especially Gilardino. He won the tactical aspect. The only way for Napoli to tie the match was thanks to the individual qualities of great players that they have.
I mean, that's what it came down to. So for this match, we talked about it a little bit with Joe from Forza Napoli Pod. I think I was surprised. I don't know about you, with how the formation started with the beginning of this match. And, I think we were debating, we were thinking probably a 4-3-2-1, similar to how we've played in the last couple of matches, having a little bit more of that organization with those kind of three, more or less, really three defensive midfield players in front of those four defensive players and organizing the team that way. Instead, we had kind of a 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2 with a little bit of variance. Did that surprise you too? I mean, what did you think about the formation?
The formation, obviously, at the beginning, a lot of people, as usual, Mugugni, Genovese, were complaining. One thing that I have to say, if not the MVP, one of the best players anyways, with Sabelli coming in, a lot of people are already starting to state the fact, oh my God, what's going to happen, and so on. But yeah, the formation was, I believe it was a 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2, and or depending on attacking, containing, or defending, it could have also been changing a little bit. But I thought it was perfect to go against the 4-3-3 that Napoli always shows.
Yeah, I personally, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't think that this was where we were going to line up. And I mean, to your point, one of the kind of thinking when, by the way, do you know how this happens? There's some magical person in Genova that seems to know how we're going to line up every single match, and they get it almost exactly right every time, 4 hours before the match.
So it's good that you bring that up, because in the Genovese, in the Genoani world in Genova, it's sort of kind of known. But from the outside, obviously, it's understandable that it's not necessarily clear or known. Essentially, there's this paper called, I don't even want to give them the advertising because it's hated a little bit as a newspaper, because it's not really, it's like your gossip almost, the quality of journalism. But anyways, it's called Secolo Decimonono, or X1X from the Roman numbers. And they most likely have dipped into the club in order to get some scoops and whatnot. And that's why most of the times they get the lineup.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I've always been surprised by that. But anyway, I think when those lineups came out, one of the first comments is, oh man, we're going to be super defensive. This is going to be a super defensive performance against Napoli. We are just going to try to take the air out of the ball and hold on for 90 minutes. And obviously, that is not at all what happened. And I thought this for me was a huge credit. I think we've seen Gilardino be a little flexible. He's been relatively consistent with his formation since he's come in the beginning of last calendar year, or this calendar year. Wow, is it really? I guess last calendar year technically. I can't remember. I always forget the first game he played. But
December.
Yeah, right. Okay. 2022. I'm not crazy. But this was a new one. I don't think we've seen this as often. And I really think it was kind of inventive because what was interesting, they called it out a couple of times a little bit on the broadcast. Obviously, of course, yes, we do have more of that defensive presence in the midfield. And we had an ability as well to bring one of those kind of midfield four almost back into a back five of sorts. But to say that we were really sitting back and playing the long ball is totally wrong. And I think what was really, really clever about this is that it gave us an opportunity with the way our formation was, particularly with how we were kind of integrating the ball and getting it towards Goodmanson and Retegui, where we could spring quickly and try to break forward for chances. And honestly, in the first half, especially, I think we had a lot of really interesting kind of attacking moments really early in the match, which was not something that we were expecting to see. We were, moving forward into Napoli's side more often than not, it felt like. And it was just so exciting to see us. It's a competent, like not risky shape that we're taking, but we were finding ways to exploit Napoli and to get into, at least some sort of position where we can try to make something happen.
Well, let me remind you or everyone to our listeners that when did we score against Lazio?
True.
So what I'm trying to say with this is we're not totally not used to fighting from the beginning as well. Napoli did themselves as well. But to your point, in the first half, I saw a great match. We ended the first half with one goal. We'll get to that in a second. But I thought if you ended at the first half, it was clearly fair for us to be winning.
Yeah, I think that's objectively true. Like we were deserved leaders going into the break. I thought that there was a lot of encouraging kind of risk taking that was happening, at least going forward. I'll talk about kind of what I've been concerned about, which we did discuss previously as well in the back. But I mean, seeing Retegui have these ridiculous kind of attempts that actually were not half bad in the end, that crazy like 35-yard screamer that actually almost beat Meret in the far post. Of course, if people remember the bicycle kick attempt and everything. But I think what was exciting is, obviously, again, you're seeing more of a team movement, even with the long kind of effort that he had. That ball was laid off beforehand. And so we had that opportunity to try to get something from the match. Thankfully, before the break, we did.
Lineup. We had a 4-4-2, as we talked just before.
Yes.
We had obviously Martinez in the goal. And then from left to right, Martin, Dragusin, Bani, and De Winter.
That's
so
right.
That's a new player that is in the formation.
Yep.
And I want to take a little time to talk about him. Meaning, since we got him in the January market, which was just before, I can't remember now specifically because memory doesn't serve us well, does it? But I can't remember if it was before or after the Fiorentina match. But he was always available since the beginning. But he was like this question mark player saying, yeah, he's from Juventus, baby. They let him go because he's not as good and so on. But again, similar to Sabelli, I think that even De Winter is one of the possible MVPs of this match because he did not screw up anything. Like he honestly had he had a command of the ball as if he was like a senior that has been playing with the team for the longest.
De Winter, I mean, this was effectively his debut, right? Was it, I mean,
Yes.
Questionably the Genoa Si Resta man of the match, which I think I agree with you. I think it was deservedly so. Partially, of course, he was involved in the first goal, which was, I think, very ingenious by him. And also something, this is another kind of hallmark, I think, that we've seen of Gilardino's players, but just love to see this from De Winter because we've not seen him really before. But really, really fighting for this ball coming off of the corner. And maybe this is part of kind of the quote unquote play that they're running or whatever it might be. But you see him and he's starting the corner almost at the far post on the opposite side of where the ball is. And he's running all the way across the goal, being marked the whole time. I know Napoli fans might say, oh, you shoved whoever it was that was defending him and whatever. But I think it looked pretty soft how that guy went down. Really fights across the goal line, gets in front of the near post and ends up nudging it perfectly across the line. where Bondi can just tap it in, and just a really, really kind of memorable, quick, well-executed set piece. And it sets us up as 1-0 up, which was fantastic.
Goodmanson fires it in. Header at the front post, and Genoa lead. It's Mattia Bani. Listen to the noise in here. Napoli failed to deal with a corner. And 5 minutes before half-time, it's too easy for Genoa.
That was an amazing goal. I was so happy for Bani, even how he celebrated by...
Didn't you love that with the knee and everything?
On the grass.
Striker.
Yeah, exactly. Remind me a little bit about Cristiano Ronaldo, but
yeah, he didn't do this too, but it's close enough.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it was a great first goal. So the goal itself, the first half was amazing. It was just like everything, the build up, it was just like wonderful, and it made everybody happy. Obviously, and the screamer for you heard it was like incredible from the Marassi. Marassi, by the way, was sold out.
Yep.
The 33,295 tickets or something like that, which are inclusive of the 28,000 more or less, anyways, of the season tickets plus the selling tickets, which included obviously also the Napoletani. But going back to our lineup. So in the midfield, we had, again, left to right, Frendrup, Strootman, Badel, and Sabelli. Sabelli, again, fantastic. That right side with De Winter and Sabelli was just like perfect.
No, I mean, it worked really, really well. And I know, like, again, we have some folks who are maybe not the biggest fans of Sabelli, but I thought he had a wonderful match as well. So it was great to see that involvement. And that's also partially how you get that flexibility, I think, as well within the defensive unit, where you kind of, Frendrup, we remember from a few seasons ago, actually played some time as a right back. And Sabelli, of course, has been playing both as a right and left back in different instances, although probably better maybe on the right side. But that gives you that kind of flexible rotation, which is something that I think has been a hallmark of how Gilardino is thinking about formation, where you have an ability to move some sort of fluidity when you're in possession and out of possession and trying to break forward.
No, absolutely. And it was just like Zielinski, one of the players that we were most afraid of, right? Or even Cavastelia, or however you pronounce his name, but they almost barely had opportunities because of these two players on the right, and even on the left. To your point, even with Martin and Frendrup, I think they both did a good job also there, even though it's not the strongest part of Napoli, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think that one of the keys to this that I thought was amazing, and a player that probably goes under the radar, and I'm probably going to get some eye rolls from Genoani about this, but for me, how we had set up our team and how I think we played a role in neutralizing these players is we were really aggressive from the very beginning in how we were defending their runs and their play. You want to talk all you want about Kvara's like horrendous free kick that went all the way to Turin, or you want to talk about like some of these other things that happened and Gisa not looking very good. You can do that all you want, but one of the things I loved watching, I did vote for De Winter and the Genoani Si Resta vote for best player of the match.
This is your MVP.
Yeah, for me, you probably won't be that surprised to hear me say, but Milan Badel, I've loved watching him play in this match, because one of the things that happened so many times, he was almost unleashed and he was that dog, like a junkyard dog looking for a bone the entire match, where anytime Napoli were trying to build from the back and do something and start the play, even from kind of the midway line of the pitch, he was running up. He was making sure that ball was going sideways. He was making sure it was going back. He was trying to take away some of those passing opportunities. And because we had players that were situated behind him, he had that flexibility to go up there and try to disrupt it and make sure that that build-up play from Napoli was, in many cases, stopped before it started. And so I think that's one of the really kind of exciting things about how this formation worked, is with that adaptability and with a lot of players who understand spacing and understand how to kind of react to a team with such firepower. We had an ability to kind of almost deter them before it even started.
And that's who is MVP player for this match, is Milan Badel. MVP of the match. even though a lot of Genoani are not, as you said too, are not going to agree with that, because they were looking for needles in a haystack, in my opinion, with respect to, it's his fault on the first goal of Napoli. It's his fault again for the second goal and so on. Listen, there's a lot of verticalizations. There's a lot of diagonality between the different players, and we'll get to the two goals after, but it's entirely a combination of doubling up as well, catching the specific player doing what they're trying to do with these two champion players that did manage it. But let's don't get too much ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to our second goal. So that was just 10 minutes within the second half. We were already feeling a little bit of the pressure of Napoli, because obviously after the break, even Rudy Garcia is going to said, there has to be a change here. We don't want to do another loss as we had and suffered against the Lazio. And then what happened there?
It was such a, I think, not exactly quintessential Retegui goal, but in a way, sort of it was. So you had, a combination of pressure. I can't remember where the shot had come in to start kind of part of this movement, but we're moving the ball, going from the right side, kind of a difficult shot that Meret can really only deflect outwards. And it ends up getting scooped up by Strootman, who identifies where Retegui's coming from, lays it back off, and then just a fantastic goal. I think this is, for me, it is the type of player we thought we were getting with Retegui. This is exactly what you'd see. It's knowing perfectly where to be in the right moment and the right time, and just finishing super, super clinically. And of course, at that moment, what an amazing feeling to be up 2-0 and potentially have a chance to capture all 3 points against the defending champions from last season.
It's whipped in, Strootman, back across, wonderful! And look who it is, Matteo Retegui. Genoa are just so clinical. Everything's going their way, but to their credit, every chance they get, they're putting in the back of the net. 2 goals in 4 Serie A appearances for Retegui.
You saw it, like the fact that Retegui had his back to the goal and was able to turn, and I remember those actions sort of coming from Diego Milito. Forgive me if I'm even using his name as a comparison.
It's okay.
Forget about that. They're both Argentine and so on, but it was just beautiful. Like, this is what you expect from a striker. And yes, you're right. 3 points was in our taste buds, and we were like and that's why, to your point at the beginning of the pod, when you said it's sort of like a bittersweet. Why? Because we were 2-0. We were containing the match. We felt we had, ownership. No, because Napoli was not dead. But at the same time, we were, proper. We were in our right spots. We were able to contain them in a proper way. And that's not the containment that we saw after the goal that we had with Lazio, where it was just hammer town, like shooting at us. And we were just defending it very well. It wasn't like that, because we still had a lot of opportunities throughout anyways.
I mean, that was, again, it's one of the things from this match I think you get so excited about, because it's not like we had completely reckless, we're going for broke type approach and we're just going for every type of forward movement we can find. There was a real idea behind how Gilardino wanted to play in this match. And, ultimately we came undone from 2 incredibly quality finishes from Napoli, and that's what happens when you play against the best team in Italy last season. But at the same time, this is why I think you kind of really have to look at the players and say, look, we did our job in this match. We got a point off of this team that we were not expecting to get a point from. We played our way. We were not playing scared. We were not playing defensive in a way where we're just hanging back and letting them have possession in quite that same way. And, to anyone that also wants to say, oh, well, Napoli just weren't sharp enough, I completely disagree with that. I really don't think, like, okay, sure, if you want to zero in on Guevara and some of the other players, maybe that shot is on target in another match. But I think this comes down a lot to how Genoa wanted to play this match, and they played the way they wanted to play really for the entirety of the match. And we just ultimately we came undone. That's all it is.
I 100% agree with you, Matt, because essentially that's the part that really, and I'm going to use this because we're not like R-rated or stuff like that. I mean, we are, whatever, right? But I get pissed off when I see
that's the word you're censoring for, is pissed.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah. Anyways, I get pissed off when I read papers, like when I see Twitter when they say Napoli sleeping and managed only to get about fuck off. This is another R-rated thing. Like seriously, it's to your point, and I want to emphasize that Napoli played well, and obviously, why did they not shine? Because they were also contained by another great team in that match. And that's the end of it. That's the extent of it. And only thanks, and I'm pointing now the finger to the Napoletani, only thanks to the cleverness of if that's even a word, of Rudy Garcia bringing in those the benchers, like the people, the subs that came in that managed to do those beautiful goals. Because I was even looking just 2 seconds ago while you were speaking, the first goal by Napoli. So the Raspadori one, it's like a 1-2, very fast at the edge of the box, and it just got the nice shots, almost similar. It reminded me a little bit of a Torino shot, but almost like a perfect dualism between the two and the great shot itself. Could have Martinez got it? Yes, for sure. He didn't, because it was a very powerful shot out of the blue, very angled, very specific, and very cynical. But it got in. It was too strong for him to catch it. You know, next shot he probably would have got it, and he did great saves, by the way, too. So not to diminish on saying that Martinez had a bad match.
Well, the only thing I will say on this, I said this before the match when we were, again, in our last pod with Joe. I am really fed up with this back from the back approach that we're taking with Martinez. I think we are completely asking for trouble here. We almost had a goal scored on us several times against Torino. They didn't score. And, you know, in that match, we were unfortunate to have conceded so late, but honestly, I really feel like it's a completely different story. I think in that one, we were resolute enough to deserve perhaps a point, but there were definitely nervy moments that it happened. Look, the same thing happened against Napoli, and it wasn't just like one half. It was multiple times. We're figuring out how to break presses this way, which is the positive angle, if you want to take that, where, you know, we're passing it short and, you know, the opposing team is kind of eagerly looking to pounce, and we're taking that energy and almost playing it back and finding a way to break through in that manner. But Fabry, there were like 4 passes that if it's off by a little bit, it's a goal. It's an easy goal. You're playing it right to the feet of the opposition, right outside the box. There were moments where I think Strootman or someone else was kind of yelling at him, like, basically stop doing this during the match. And I think that this is a direction that he's been getting, or a way that maybe Gilardino wants to play. But I just really don't understand, why don't we just huff it out? I'm not saying we have to play the long ball all the time, but if we have a goal kick and the opposing team is pressuring all of your kind of close options, don't invite that pressure to those players, because you're just putting them under pressure in a really, really bad place. And, you know, if they make a mistake, if Dragusin has a heavy touch, goal. If the ball is a little bit, you know, inaccurate and it gets intercepted, probably a goal. So I don't know what we're doing here. I'm not saying Martinez needs to be benched, but like, we really need to stop with this. Like, I think it's going to happen. There's going to be a goal that happens from this if we continue down this way. And I know that, like, part of the mentality of playing this way is that goals can happen, but having a keeper that's playing with their feet enables so much more. I don't disagree with the fact that we should be having a keeper. We should have Martinez try to play with his feet. I'm just saying these short passes, especially from goal kicks or really quick situations, all they're doing is inviting pressure. And it's not serving us very well in the long run. And I think it'd be better for us, honestly, to just try to regroup after kicking the ball over the halfway line than for us to try to play it really short to our center back or our fullback and hope that they break the press in their own third. Because if they don't, the opposition is right there. You know, it just feels way too risky to me.
Different philosophies, different approaches. Obviously, the studies have shown that if you do long balls, as you even mentioned as well, anyways, but 9 out of 10, you're losing the ball anyways. So I guess that's one of their approaches. Now, to your point, why do it so short? Do it a little bit longer? Maybe that should be the approach. But I was looking at, I'm not trying to change topic, but okay. I was looking also at their second goal, and again, it was a 1-2, fantastic. We were set very well in the defense. That's why I said earlier that I disagreed with always pointing fingers to Milan Badel. where it was a very fast, as we say in Italian, scatto. So he just managed to run at the edge of offside while that ball from the center back, it was about 2/3 down, went all the way precise to essentially to Politano, that managed to get this ball on the fly. Like, he didn't stop it. And I'm sure that if he tries to do that again and again, not only the cross doesn't happen, but also his kick goes up to the stars. But that's why also that goal happened, and it happened at 2-2. And I would bet anything in the whole entire world that if we had, look at our pod with Joe, I was the only one that claimed for the tie, while essentially we were all thinking that it would have been a loss because we were not expecting to do any points against the Campioni.
I mean, that's why I think, I know it's going to feel, I mean, this is exactly your point. Giving up points when you have a chance to win, no matter the opponent, always feels like a loss. And I understand it, but I'm with you. Like, this wasn't a match we were thinking we were going to get points out of. The most optimistic result was a draw, and we almost had a win. But at the same time, like, I was just griping about Martinez. I think that's really the only player that I could put anything out there on. And to your point, he had some great saves too. So it's not like Martinez had a negative game or didn't have an impact for us either. So I think at the end of the day, like, you have to look at this as like, this is a good team outcome. This is something we can hopefully build on. And it's a point gained in a match that we knew from the beginning was going to be really, really difficult.
Few stats: 3 shots on goal for us versus 4 of them. Off target, 4 each. That's amazing against Campioni d'Italia. Do you know what I mean? And put it this way, we managed to have Napoli chase us to recuperate 2 goals rather than the opposite. Would have been quite different, right?
I mean, absolutely. That's the beautiful thing about it. And I know it's very, very early in the season, but just that one point. I mean, at this point, the standings are so close, it's hard to really like read into them too much. But we're already in that 13th position, having getting four points from 4 matches so far. So, obviously we have our work cut out for us. There's in no way, a need or a possibility to kind of like rest on the performance that we've already had. But these are things to take encouragement from, because you don't always get points from teams like that.
No, it's true. And even at the beginning of the season, I don't necessarily like to read too much about there's so many pods anyways on Serie A, so it's hard really. It almost doesn't make sense to talk about the other matches because there's so much out there. But we're so early also in the season that it's at match day 4, even listing the whole standings itself, it's almost like useless. But I do want to talk about a very important match, as we said, even with Joe from last pod, that was happening on Monday, because it's not that important in a certain way, not for one team, but especially for the other one. Remember that we talked with Joe saying it's a very super important match happening at the Ferraris on Monday? It did happen. Our friend Jake from Città Calcio USA, as I said last pod, I told him, you have to deliver, boy. You have to deliver all that has to happen. So you came at the Ferraris last year. Now, he exaggerated on social media. I put him into his place a little bit, but saying Genova is Granata. No, it's fucking not Granata. It'll never be Granata. Anyways, but Cittadella came to Marassi playing against Genoa. That was in a whole mutiny situation with Blessin. And now with Maestro Pirlo, with the cyclists, multicolored Sampdoria team, managed to win again. So Sampdoria lost. I was so happy about that.
FC Aquafresh, the breath is gone bad, bro. It's not looking good.
That's right.
It's not looking good. It's not a good start to the season.
So to wrap this up, let's hear quick comments from our Joe from our past podcast about the match itself.
Hey everyone, Joe Fischetti here from the Forza Napoli podcast. I just wanted to give you a few thoughts on the Genoa-Napoli match. Forgive me if I'm more focused on what Napoli did poorly rather than on what Genoa did well. I mean, no disrespect, it's just that as a Napoli fan, I tend to focus more on what Napoli are doing or not doing, but I will give Genoa some praise here too. So from a Napoli perspective, the first hour of this match was reminiscent of the final half hour of our match against Lazio, which was pretty dreadful. we seem to have no game plan whatsoever other than to launch the ball forward to Osimhen and hope for the best, and in contrast, it seemed like Genoa had a very clear game plan and they executed it very well. In our preview pod, we talked a little bit about the press, and I thought that our press lacked cohesion, which allowed Genoa to play through the press time and time again, but credit to Genoa for that. It's certainly not easy to do that against Napoli. In fact, I thought Genoa's press was far better than Napoli's press, at least in that first half of the match, and then of course Genoa sat back a little bit in the second half, or at least after the second goal. If you didn't know better, you might have thought that Napoli were the newly promoted club and Genoa were the champions of Italy, which really is a credit to Alberto Gilardino. Garcia has probably rightfully been on the receiving end of most of the blame or criticism from Napoli fans, even though the results are not terrible. 2 wins and a draw isn't a horrible way to start this season. It's the way that Napoli are playing compared to last season that's giving Napoli fans a lot of anxiety. Somehow, in only 4 matches, Garcia has managed to undo just about all of Spalletti's hard work over the past 2 seasons. I thought Gilardino was smart to leave Bani and Dragusin to defend and double-team Osimhen, so he was outnumbered and often isolated, but credit to them, they did an excellent job of shutting down Osimhen. Likewise, De Winter did a good job of shutting down Kvara while also adding an assist. Though I did think that former Genoa man Leo Ostergaard did quite well in his first start of the season. Apparently Rachmani was kept out due to muscle fatigue and they wanted to make sure he didn't get hurt ahead of the Champions League match against Braga. I also thought it was a little bit harsh of the Genoani to whistle Ostergaard, but that's fine. Obviously, we did not defend the set piece very well. Both of Genoa's goals were scored from corner kicks. Hats off to Matteo Retegui on the second goal. That was a fantastic finish, and he continues to give supporters of the Nazionale hope that we might have finally gotten a legitimate number 9 that we have been longing for. The one thing Garcia did get right was his substitutions. For the most part, I thought Cayusta did well off the bench. He assisted on the first goal and he played the pass before the pass on the second goal. Raspadori absolutely laced the ball into the top corner to get us back into the match. And Politano scored a stunning volley from a gorgeous pass from Zielinski. I thought we looked much more dangerous in the 4-2-3-1 formation, which may be a solution. It's certainly a way to get Raspadori into the starting lineup, and I definitely think he deserves to play more. But in the end, despite coming from behind to salvage a point, this was a very disappointing result for us. And again, I don't mean any disrespect to Genoani. It was just disappointing to see how basically the exact same group of players, minus Kim Min-jae, could look so completely lost and play so differently than the team that won the Scudetto quite handedly last season. But congratulations to Genoani. I'm sure by the end of the match, Genoani were probably disappointed to not get all 3 points, which I thought were fully deserved. But at the same time, I suspect prior to the match, you would have been quite content with a draw.
Thank you, Joe, and looking forward to talking to you soon. Now, quickly before we go to the break, I want to talk about our boys at the Primavera. So we had match day 3. We played against Verona at home. We won 3-0. So that's something very remarkable about our boys. So after the first match, which was a loss against a very strong Torino side, second match was away at Firenze to play against Fiorentina, ended 1-1. And this is our first victory. So it gave us a good opportunity to go back a little bit up in the standings. Again, it's very early as well, but it was 3-0. Obviously, the red card against Verona helped us, but at the end, it was a beautiful 3-0. We're going to hear a lot more from Fini, which was one of our other goal scorers. Kudos and compliments to our boys as well. So I guess one more thing. What did you think about the golden kit?
I mean, I don't know. I was messaging you afterwards after I went on a whole rant about this the last time we recorded. I actually thought about buying it online. So who am I?
You are going to buy it. You are going to buy it. It's sweet. It's nice.
I don't like it. I really don't.
You don't.
I'm all over the place with this kit because I really want to have one of these like special edition kits for Genoa. Like I love that idea. I love the embossed like 1893 and 130 years and everything. But I don't know, man. Like for me, it looked kind of like how I thought it looked. I didn't think that they were going to wear navy shorts and socks, which I thought were like a nice touch. I'm sure we'll never ever have a chance to buy those because they're just not going to put anything on sale. But I think it was fine. The collar doesn't go all the way around. It's a decent looking shirt. But for me, there's just like too many things, especially with the context that this is like not just the third kit, but it's the 130th anniversary kit. Like you have the Griffin outside the badge. You don't have the St. George's Cross. Hardly have any Rosso blue on the shirt at all. There's really nothing that ties back to any of the original designs of the club or the current designs of the club. And I think gold is.
But that's the third kit too, right?
Yes, but like it's not just the third kit. That's my whole point. Like if this was just like random season third kit, we all be like, okay, like whatever. But for it to be something commemorative and the 130th and like a really big.
Are you gonna love it next week again?
No, I don't think so. Again, it needs to be a little bit more special than that. There aren't that many clubs out there that can even say they've been around for that long. And I know that sometimes these things don't always they can underwhelm, but for me, I just think that we could have done better with that kit. I think it could have been something that doesn't have to be another Rosso blue kit. We could have also done with like the white and navy stripes. We could have had other things that are there. We could have had a different take on the St. George's Cross and the badge, or maybe we went with a big badge in the center or something. Like we could have done a whole bunch of like different things that were there. For me, it was a little bit too kind of generic for the occasion. And I think the look aesthetically was fine. It wasn't bad. I think gold is a nice color that fits in the Genoa kind of space a little bit, because obviously we have the Il Grifone is, typically more of yellow, but that color palette, especially seeing it on like the socks and stuff with the Rosso blue, was kind of nice. It's like
the gold is also around the St. George's Cross on the lanterna, so it is part of our part of our history anyways.
We've had it on other shirts too, like the Zena kit from a few years ago had gold, and actually for me that kit would have been better in the same instance. That maybe that's controversial, but I feel like that kit was a little bit more unique and a little bit more special to us than a gold kit with just the Grifone and no badge.
It is wearable, at least. Let's give them that.
Sure.
Some sort of unofficial news from directly from the club itself. We received some great news that in early October, so a few weeks away, the e-store is going to vamp up a little bit with more stuff. So let's stay tuned for that and looking forward to that. Absolutely. All right. So let's go to the break as we have something special coming up.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to La Antena Podcast. So this is part 2. And as I mentioned before in the first part, we have special guests. No, actually, I should say we have a special guest, but the truth is we have multiple special guests. So this is the first time for our pod that we have more than one. It's not even 2, but it's actually 3. So forgive me if I'm not getting the names right. I think I do. So we have Dom, Will, and Zach, all 3 fans of Lecce. So I'll turn it to them to introduce themselves and welcome, guys, to our pod.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having us. We're excited. Yeah, it's our first appearance with you guys. So, yeah, looking forward to talking about Lecce and a little bit of Genoa as well.
I'm Dom. I've been a Lecce fan, nearly 10 years. Me and Will used to work together. And Will, I think at that period, Lecce were in Serie C, and he was talking to me about them. And then I had a love for Italian football as well. And then really from then onwards, I became interested in Lecce, and we sort of followed them as they rose from Serie C to Serie A. And then thankfully, Will and I have managed to go to 2 games in Italy. We've managed to see them live, which has been a pretty proud moment.
Hello, so I'm Zach. I'm very new to the Lecce fan club. I've known Will for about a year, 18 months, and he's the one that's got me really into Lecce. So I've got a massive passion for football, whether it's Italian, English, Spanish, any form of football I love. And Will happens to have this obviously massive passion and love for Lecce. So I thought I might as well jump on the ride and sort of see how it goes. And yeah, to be honest, we speak every single day about it. So I follow them now as close, if not closer, than my home team. So yeah, it's been really good to have that sort of second team, but they're slowly closing the gap on my English team.
We're not going to be talking about it, Zach, but what's your first team, if I may ask?
It's Arsenal.
Arsenal. Okay, so you're in luck with Matt.
Yeah.
We're actually all Arsenal fans, so it's Arsenal for all of us, and then Lecce a close second. So all in the same boat there.
Well done, boys. I'm a fellow Gunner myself, or Gooner, I should say. But it's amazing how it works, though, isn't it? Like you start getting involved in another club, and you've got that kind of community, and you start paying attention. All of a sudden, it really sucks you in. It's the same way for me with Genoa as well. I got connected with the fan club here in New York, and before too long, I'm on group chats where everybody's speaking in Italian, and you're going to watch the match at a pub and having focaccia and watching the game, and all of a sudden, you're a massive supporter. So it's cool to see you guys have picked up the torch for Lecce, and pretty good start to the season so far, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were saying we couldn't have hoped for a better start, unbeaten and a couple of wins. I mean, I don't think we're going to finish in the top four, but it's nice to see us at the top rather than having to scroll down to look at where we are in the league. We're not getting ahead of ourselves. As long as we're above the bottom three, then I'm happy. I'm not trying to get too ahead of where we're at the moment. Just need to get the points in the bag while we can and just make make hay while the sun shines, I think.
Yeah, I know that feeling for sure.
Well, also because if I'm remembering well from last season, where it was almost like a stable mid-table, but sometimes edging towards the bottom, but easily managed to stay afloat. And I'm only basing on that. So obviously, I'm not saying anything other than what I'm trying to express is the fact of seeing Lecce all the way down, sort of to the bottom, not like relegation material, but close enough. And then seeing the start of the season amazingly, what in your opinions, what changed?
I mean, I think one of the things is that I think the recruitment has been really good in the summer. I think in the past, especially when we were last in Serie A, I think we got some things slightly wrong with the recruitment. We sort of went for names like Babacar, Imbula, players like that who were on the kind of European level, heard of, and kind of took a risk on them. Whereas I think what Lecce seemed to have changed, especially when we went down to Serie B and now, is sort of going to players that are maybe not as well known, but have a mentality that they want to play at a high level in Serie A, show themselves that they got the capability to play at the higher level in Europe. And I think the players that we brought in, because we lost a few players in the summer, but I think the players we brought in have really settled in well. And I think the midfield that we have had an excellent start. I think they really made it their own. And I mean, we don't look like we're missing players. We look like we're a team that's already gelled so well in these first 4 games. And I think that's the important thing. And I think with a new coach as well, you're always going to have that sort of moment where you'll have the opportunity to sort of, they call it the honeymoon period. But I think we're enjoying this moment. I think the coach's philosophy and mentality is coming out in the players as well.
Just to refresh memory to whoever is listening that might not know specifically, the 4 matches that you mentioned before with a couple of ties and a couple of wins are essentially starting with the first one was the win at home against Lazio. Phenomenal 2-1 surprise, but an amazing match. Then a tie 2-2 against Fiorentina. And we know something about that team anyways, having had our first one, which was just like, okay, let's forget it. And the third one, which was a beautiful straight win against Salernitana. And this last one, which was perhaps the least, I guess, strong shows, even though it was a little bit of a mess with the two red cards and the penalty that was given right at the beginning. So, could have stirred things anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the one where if you're looking at your first 4 games, you'd think Monza's the one where we need to get a win. But because we'd already had a couple of surprise results, and the Fiorentina one, we were 2-0 down. So to get a draw is definitely a value-added point rather than anything lost. So we're happy to kind of get a point away from home, extend the unbeaten run. And Zach was mentioning yesterday, like the manner of the holding on period. We were down to 10 men from the 50-something minute. That showed a different side to get a point. So it just shows that the team has more than one way of grinding out a win. I know Zach was speaking about it yesterday, but if you want to kind of touch on it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that's the spirit of the team, and I think coming off of last year, first 4 games, I think we collected 2 points, and to get to where we are on 8 points, it took 10 games. So just coming off of the buzz every single week is just it's just piling on that sort of motivation and sort of optimism every single time. And yeah, in those sort of minutes where you're thinking, oh God, here we go, this could be 2, 3, 4, 1, but you grind out those results and just shows how far the team's come in such a short space of time, I think.
Does it make you almost any more nervous all of a sudden you start seeing these results come in? Like
that's exactly it. Yeah, as soon as you start doing well, that's when you expect it now. But it's still very, very early. So, if we happen to slip up on a few games, then that's not a problem at all. It's just nice to be on an undefeated four-game start.
And also because if I look at the next 4, obviously the first one is with Genoa, but then you have Juventus at Torino, then you have Napoli at home, and then Sassuolo, which is a weird team this year anyways, but...
Yeah, so that's why I think it's great that we've got some points in the bag now, because if we do go on a slightly iffy run, because they're 4 good teams, well, definitely 3 good teams and Sassuolo at the moment, it's nice to have something to fall back on, because I think even if we lose those 4, even if we did pick up no points, I don't think there's a way that we could drop dramatically down into the bottom and it wouldn't reverse our mood all of a sudden. So Dom and I were saying before we came on, how nice would it be to just get a nice grind out, a 1-0 win away at Juve, just because it's always good to take down a big one, isn't it? So we're not going to, like I said, we're not getting ahead of ourselves, but always just take it one game at a time. Much like I do with Arsenal, we just think, who's the next game? With Lecce, it's just like, well, what would we take at this point? And at home to Genoa, if I'm being greedy, I'd say I'd like to win, obviously, because we're better at home. And also because you're a team that's probably trying to get the same objective as we are. So we need to take points off of our rivals. But if we've got a draw against you and then a draw away at Juve, that's still, you look at that and it's like, yes, 2 points, but it extends the belief, like Zach said. And it is literally just one game at a time, because who would have guessed that you would have been 2-0 up against Napoli and pulling results like that out after a slightly sticky start. So you can't get ahead of yourself at all.
No, for sure. And forgive me for doing this, but I wanted to backtrack a little bit because I don't think we gave enough visibility to what you guys are actually doing and where you're from and who you are. We reached out to you, specifically to you, Will, but obviously you're the representative of everyone. So I'm reading it as the title that I'm reading it from Instagram. So it's US Lecce Fans UK. So first of all, for whoever doesn't understand, US does not stand for United States, but stands for Unione Sportiva. So that's instead of FC for football club or whatever that might be. But Lecce Fans UK. So tell me a little bit more about it. Who started it? How many of you guys there? Are you all British or are there some Italians? Which is okay, but it's curious.
So it's a strange scenario, really. So it was actually me and my cousin started supporting Lecce when we were really young, and I'm talking about maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Wow.
And we literally came about it because we used to play FIFA on Xbox or PlayStation, whatever it was back then. And obviously, me being an Arsenal fan, he is a Watford fan who play in yellow and Arsenal play red. So we said, let's not play as each other's teams. Let's find a team that has yellow and red in their kit. And then we stumbled across Lecce, who have obviously these great colours, and you just kind of fell into it. And then, as I said, every time you meet a new person, you realise they're into football. Not many English fans will follow Serie A where they already have a team that they follow. So if they're into football and I say, oh, why don't you just start supporting this little team? And then it slowly takes over. But in terms of the page, we've been running the page for about maybe 5 or 6 years now. Started off as a bit of a joke to see kind of how far it would get. And it did kind of spiral quite quickly into a couple of thousand followers and became a bit of a second job at times just to keep it rolling. But yeah, we've met so many people through it who from Lecce who live in London like us. I mean, none of us are Italian or or particularly I speak a tiny bit of Italian, but not enough to get by. But we just meet so many people, and we've met a lot of connections from people who follow the page who are from Lecce, and then when we went out there, they then took us out and they really embraced us, because I think a lot of Lecce fans will be like, why do you support us when there's all these huge teams in the north, the traditional teams? And I think it just means a lot to them. That's the vibe I've got, is that if we were at Arsenal and there was a family from Japan over at Arsenal, I wouldn't talk to them, because that's just where the arrogance of a big team. But when you're a little Lecce team and you've got random English guys supporting you, I think it means a lot to them, and it just helps with like the snowball effect of us feeling welcomed, and that's the effect I've got, and it's dragged Dom and Zach and quite a few others along as well. There's probably a group of like 15 or 20 of us, if we needed to, that could put on a shirt and turn up for a game. So yeah, I think it's just one of those where you feel so embraced that you can't help but get involved and follow the team.
I can completely relate. I love that was like I can relate a lot to that origin story. Actually, I became a Genoa fan purchasing a discounted kit that I thought looked kind of nice, and then got called out in the streets one day because someone saw me wearing it, and like, I can't believe there's another person wearing this thing. And going out to the pub to meet these guys up, the first question, all of them, because they're all from Genoa, were like, why are you supporting Genoa? But it's just a really welcoming thing, and it almost draws you closer into it too. Do you guys have like, what's the match day vibe like? Do you guys go to a pub somewhere and you kind of take over Lecce style? Do you watch at home? Like, how do you guys usually do it?
So it's difficult because there's also a slight, we're an hour behind. Obviously, you guys have an even bigger job watching the game. But for the bigger games, there's a really like welcoming Lecce fan club who are from actually from Lecce, live in Fulham, which is West London. So where Tom and I are East London. So when there's a big game like the promotion game, for example, last season, they show all the games there, but we take ourselves down there and we do take over I guess it's like a basement bar. Yeah, the basement bar, the private room hire, and they put it on a big screen. And Zach was there for, I think that was your initiation into the group, wasn't it?
It certainly was, yeah. It certainly was. And what a game to do it as well.
Yeah. And when as soon as you turn up, it's just like there's new people. Like I've been there a couple of times, Don's been there a couple of times, but like it was Zach's first time, and we went with a couple of other friends and relatives and things, and they just, doesn't matter who you are, they just see you and they want to give you a hug and get you a beer and things. And they're making a fortune for Lecce, because there's just so many replica kits now being bought by random English guys. So they're doing the club a favour, I think.
Well, that's for sure. Like, we're having some issues right now with our back and forth. Last year we had Castor. This year we're back with Kappa. Our e-commerce is a little bit upside down, but last rumors we had was they're starting to get things together, and we have like we put together this chat on WhatsApp with people, English speaking Genoa fans around the world, and everybody's like, just, I'm throwing money at you, but you don't even have these stores up. So no, we're totally understanding, and we would, in a way, thanks to, I guess, Amazon or eBay, that you're able to find also different ways, or the classic football shirt, which is Matt's fault that he introduced me to that website, which has tons of stuff there anyways. But yeah, the other question I had was, when it comes to the fact of embracing smaller teams, like, in a way, even though Lecce and Genoa are very different, but when you compare it to the larger ones, I call them the Sei Sorelle, which is the six sisters, like your typical Juve, Milan, or whatever. It's like we are all in the same boat against them, because they only talk about them. So F you, it's also about us. The league happens also because of us. So to me, it's just something wonderful to see more and more and more of not them. So I don't know if it makes sense. No, it's true, because it's not only about them, and it has to be heard in that way as well. So the fact of you being there and embracing and recruiting and so on, it's just fantastic from a Serie A perspective. It's wonderful.
I mean, it's interesting you say that about the kind of big six, or the first game we went to was the San Siro, and it was Lecce against Milan. For whatever reasons, I was actually in the Milan end with a friend who was a Milan supporter. But Will was with his cousin in the Lecce away end. And you got this sense, because at the time, Milan, the fans were not happy. They were protesting. So I was in this Milan end. First time in San Siro, none of the fans were singing or cheering. They were on a protest. And then you had small Lecce on the other end, packed out away end, and just jumping up and down the whole game, just happy, appreciative to be there. And then score a last minute equaliser, and it just goes crazy in their end. And I think that was really like an eye-opening to me as well, because you kind of see how the big teams take so much for granted as well. Whereas these little, supposedly, you say little teams, Lecce was you're here for the journey, the experience. Whereas with Milan, it was here we are again. I think Pioli is his first game in charge, and there was all of these sort of arguments happening in the stands. Right. And then that same season, we went to Lecce to watch a game, and just how even the city itself of Lecce, just everyone just welcomes you as if you're royalty, basically. I mean, we were having a drink before the game, and the barman asked if we were going to the game, and then he offered to give us a lift to the game. So it was, and Will made some amazing friends at that San Siro game who just took us out the night after the game in Lecce and just treated us like we were literally kings, basically. They paid for everything, took us out for food and drink. And I think that's what some of these small teams represent. It's a family. And I think that's what Lecce is. And I think from Will, and you see me and Zach here, like that family is like extended through Will and through the people of Lecce to have us here today. So I definitely see that in comparison to those sort of big teams of Italy.
So am I mistaken to understand that Zach still has to have that great experience going over to Italy?
I do indeed, yes. I mean, it's something that me and Will have spoken about pretty much weekly for the last 6 months. So it's on our to-do list for the next, either sort of late this year or early next year. We will get out to at least one game. But yeah, even just listening to Dom there, I mean, I'm already excited. So I'm sure I'll be going to quite a few in the future. Yeah.
I mean, Lecce compared to other cities is almost the furthest down compared to England anyways. But compared for us, like you heard that Matt obviously is in New York in the event. If you didn't know, obviously I'm in Toronto, so it's not that much of a difference in distance for the two of us to come over to Italy. So definitely you're way more luckier and have more opportunities than us going there. But one other quick question, because we faced them last year being in Serie B with your you call them however you prefer, but I don't know, I'm going to call them like your brothers, no, your cousins, no, your neighboring rivalries from Bari. So how's that? How's that?
There was a moment last season where it looked like they were going to come up through the playoffs as well, wasn't it? And it was really weird because I didn't want them to come up because I didn't want them to have a nice experience. I didn't want them to have this nice thing of being promoted. But at the same time, I thought it would be good. It would be good to play them. But the thing that I was really worried about is that they would get promoted and we would get relegated and we'd pass each other. So thankfully it worked out then. But yeah, Bari and Lecce is like, it's a crazy rivalry. And even when we went there, Dom and I went to Lecce, and I remember just the pure hatred as soon as you mentioned the place. It was.
I saw your faces.
It's not. I mean, we have like Arsenal Tottenham rivalries, and we have rivalries over here, but over there it's almost like it's spiteful, isn't it? It's like they're offended by the name of their rivals, and it's not something that I am used to as an English.
No, and even when because some people, they fly into Bari to go to Lecce or out, and when we told them that we were flying from the local airport to Lecce, everyone was like, good. You don't go to Bari, don't go to Bari.
Yeah, I did was flying into the city. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you didn't beat. Who beat them in the final? I think it was Cagliari, wasn't it? I think Cagliari beat.
Yeah, it was.
Still Rosso Blue, still red and blue, but not us. It was them. Yeah.
That's music to our ears, though. I feel like it was kind of like an unusual rivalry that we picked up with them over the course of this season. I don't know if Fabry, you have more of the historical context than I do, but there was a lot. I mean, there's a little bit of maybe Sampdoria sympathy with the clubs too, as well, which obviously never sits well with us. But
so yeah, me being half Canadian, half Italian, obviously part of my life. I lived it down in Genova. So I got to see certain things. And what I'm trying to say is, like, to Matt's point, Bari and Sampdoria have this gemellaggio, which means that there's this twinship, friendship, or whatever you might want to call it. So that natural comes to us to become anti-Bari. And for us has always been also, if I have to even think about even further past, and in the past, Bari has always been a little bit fishy on certain things and politically corrupt or not. I don't want to get into that, but they're not necessarily also liked for that reason as well. And the whole entirety of last season, it appeared, I'm sure it wasn't, I want to say I'm sure, but it really appeared that they were favored in somehow, sometimes because of these late penalty calls or things like that. And it makes you even dislike a team, even if you didn't have any feeling for them. And it's a little bit like a Juve for Serie A anyways, like nobody, you either hate them or you like them. Different reason, of course, but yeah. So that's the biggest reason why we don't have great friendship. And when I say that, it's mostly about the ultras and the fans per se. It's because of this friendship tied with it between the two of them. But we are saying that you are happy, obviously, for the points that you have reached. We talked a little bit already, but let's start to get into the match, I'd say. So we will be playing on Friday. So it'll be the first match of match day 5. It will be at, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, at Stadio del Mare or something like that?
Via del Mare.
Okay, Via del Mare, that's right, sorry. And what are your expectations? I mean, what your heart says and what your brain says. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I can go. I mean, now that I'm just following everything that Lecce do, it seems to be whoever they're playing next, I will do a little bit of research into how, especially for a team that we've not sort of played in a few years, you sort of see what's the head-to-heads like, how did we get on most recently and stuff like that. And on paper, it doesn't favour us at all. But like you said, when you with your head and your heart, I think at the moment, I think we're in the best possible position we can be in order to pick up those 3 points. And as a fan, you believe that no matter what, even if the stats are against you, you always back your team. So I will always say it's 100% 3 points, easy peasy. But in my head, it's not quite the case. So I think it'll be a really good game. I think obviously with you guys coming up now, you're going to want to prove something as well. But then I think Will mentioned it earlier, we're two teams that are likely to finish sort of maybe in a similar sort of area of the table. So games like this are almost as important as a first versus second sort of game. So these can, we found out at the end of last season, these points are massive. 1 point can save you from relegation, but then 3 points can take you up 4 spaces. So I think it's going to be a really good game. Again, I think Will said it before, if you sort of come out of it and you pick up a point, you're not too disheartened. Absolutely gutted if you lose, but as always, it's move on to the next. But yeah, 3 points coming our way on Friday, I think.
We like also to dive into there and say, if you're thinking about the 3 points, fair enough. How do you see the result? Like a 1-0, 2-1?
I think it'll be a close game. I think it will be a close game. Again, doing a little bit of research, as I always do. It takes me about 5-10 minutes for prior to the game, see how we get on. And it always seems to, I think there was one game, I think it was like 4-2 that you won, but the others are all like 1-1, 0-0, 2-1. So I think it will be a close game, possibly scrappy in stages. There might be the odd penalty shout. I think that's the way football's moving these days. There seems to be a lot of that. So I reckon a 2-1 win, if not perhaps a 1-1.
Okay.
I like it.
Who wants to go next? Dom?
Well, all I'm going to say is obviously, we play on Friday evening and we've got to close that gap to Inter. So that's but no, I think like Zach's saying, I think it's a good game to play at this time as well, because I think if it was later in the season and both of us were sort of looking behind us and maybe we was near that sort of relegation zone, it might be a bit cagey. But I think because it's still quite early on in the season, I think it might give an opportunity to be a bit more of an open game, because there's maybe not as much riding on it so early in the season. But I'm 100%, I think, I'm sorry to say it, guys, but Lecce win this one. I know you guys got a good result against Napoli, but I think you guys being promoted, I think you're playing with the big boys now, and so but yeah, I think it will be, like Zach said, I think it'll be a close game, but I think we'll edge it out 2-1. And I think it might be even a case that we're 2-0 up and you pull something back later on, and it might be a bit under pressure for Lecce towards the end. But I think we'll hold on and we'll get the 3 points.
Don't forget, big boys, you're right, but we only missed the big boys for 1 year. Don't forget that.
The only thing I will caveat that with is that I don't want to be the doom and gloomer, but I do think Bascarotto being unavailable, he was super last season, and I don't know if you guys saw the challenge that saw him get sent off. I still think it's crazy decision the referees looked at it twice and still sent him off. He literally kicked the ball away, and his follow through came down on top of the Monza striker's foot. Not dangerous at all, really, but straight red. And I think straight red. So that's 3. I think that's a 3-game ban, and I think it'll be a big miss. I still think we will win because I have to go along with my colleagues on this one. I'm gonna say 1-0. I think we'll score early, which we've seemed to have started off doing, and then try and dig in and defend what we have.
Being that's a 1-goal lead only. Who do you think is going to score?
For us, I think our new striker, like Kristovic, or however you say it. I mean, he's made less than 3 full appearances, and he scored 3 goals. You know, he came on for 5 minutes against Fiorentina, I think it was, and scored what was then the equaliser. Scored against Salernitana, I believe, and obviously scored after 2 minutes on the weekend. So right now, he looks like our best bet to score us a few goals, and I'm going to go him just because he seems like the safe bet.
All right. Matt?
I think I'm with Will on this one being really close. The heart says it'll be a close win for Genoa, but I actually think it might be a draw. I think it might be a goalless draw, actually. I was really, really encouraged. I think a lot of us were, with the Napoli match, we were kind of unsure after losing to Torino so late and having a really poor start against Fiorentina. Could we kind of do anything going forward? Were we having any chance of being positive? And obviously this match against Napoli, for a lot of the game, we were taking it to them. I still think, not that was a false dawn or anything, but I'm a little bit kind of worried. Lecce are in form not by accident. I really believe that. I think it'll be a decent match. I do think there will be a fair number of chances for each side, but I don't expect this one to be super free-flowing personally. So I wouldn't be so surprised if it ended without a goal. I do think, unsurprisingly, if we were to get a goal, I would peg Retegui probably to get that goal, just the way he's been so clinical. But that's kind of why I'm a little bit nervous about this match. We've been excellent at being clinical in the matches that we've gotten points. It's not like we've been absolutely peppering the goal every single time. And so I think even with, one of Lecce's starting center backs out for this match and unavailable, it might be a little bit hard for us to get too much going forward, and that's why I think it may end up with the points shared at Lecce.
At Lecce, yeah. I kind of have to go on the same path of Matt. Obviously, the heart says, oh yeah, it's going to be an easy peasy on our side, but no. Going at the away match at Lecce is obviously for different reasons. Not only it's difficult on away matches, not only it's difficult for the fact, as also Will has stated earlier on, that you guys are really good at home, but it's a head-to-head. So compared to our previous matches, this is perhaps the first one that we're going to be facing. Again, we said that throughout, perhaps the teams that might be looking at the same area of the table at the end of the season. So it is utterly important not to miss this one. And we said that throughout, like 1 point winning, either 1 point or that the 3 points from a win can make that difference right at the end of the season as well. So I think, and again, you guys even said that the winning against Juve, it's just added points. Obviously, it's all good, right? Because you're just still adding it to that pot, that that threshold of the 40 points that we're all aiming for. But it's the head-to-head, and that's super important not to underestimate that and not take that under, make sure that the focus is there. And I think because of that, unfortunately, it might not look as an amazing match. It'll be very skeptical, a little bit nervous. Again, it's my opinion, of course. But so I think it's going to be a match with a lot of fouls. I'm hoping I don't want to see red cards. For both of us anyways, but I predict that there might be a few. But yeah, I think it's going to be either scoreless draw, or maybe a 1-1 with maybe you guys starting with the lead and we're tying it there, but close to the point of a tie. But I don't think there is going to be much of one team edging over the other one. Again, to Zach's point, for him it was a 2-1 or a tie. Maybe there could be also the surprise, because even though Lecce has been doing amazingly well, there is, it seems, a very small decline, and maybe we can take advantage of that. And then you go and beat Juve. That's all I care.
Yeah, regardless, you guys will have fans in the next match for sure.
More than half of Italy is going to be rooting for you guys on that one. But yeah, so essentially it's not going to be easy. The rationale behind it is only going to be super nervous, I suppose. And I guess we can only hope that it's going to be a great match, no matter what. Enjoyment of watching it and being happy and say, yes, it was a well-deserved. We both deserved it, so it's a fair result, rather than saying, oh, Napoli, damn those 2 goals at the end, but or in your case also for Monza. But if there's anything what's your weakest spot if you had to pinpoint one?
Personally, I think it's our defence, because it's not been brought up yet, but last season having Umtiti there he was like the trump card. Is like who would have envisioned Umtiti rocking up and playing for Lecce for a season, and he in many cases made the difference. I mentioned before that like last year we took 4 points off of Lazio. Umtiti in those 2 games was unbelievable. He tied up Immobile, he got nowhere near the ball. So I do think losing him I think we need to factor that in over the course of a season, and especially now that Ep.64 is out, we're going to have to go with what would be a second choice defender from last year and a new guy this year. So it's going to be an unknown. I do think defensively is where we will come unstuck, weirdly, because I thought last year we didn't score enough goals. I think we may have tipped it slightly more the other way now, which I'm more than happy to go and have a shootout with teams if we can. But I think we're more likely to get found out this year trying to defend. That's my very small insight to the league so far that I've seen.
But yeah, looking at the numbers, goals for were 33 versus 46 conceded, and this year it's looking very nice. Obviously, we're only at match day 4, but still with 7 goals for and 4 against. So it at least, I mean, from the initial standpoint, you're not first, of course, but it's a good solid upper half of goals scored, which is not bad at all. So that's the part that I think we, for now, knock on wood, we're quite solid in defense. We're obviously, it's not impossible to get through us, because that last goal against Torino, as you pointed out, Will, we're not, no, was it Zach, I think? It doesn't matter, sorry. But the fact that we're not able to edge too much on the matches with big goal scoring difference, that's why my rationale behind the possibility of a tie. But I can see the fact that the home turf definitely does give that edge for you guys, and that's where it obviously can go that way. But, Matt, did you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I was just thinking, Fabry, you were kind of saying earlier, sort of hinting to maybe Gilardino being a little bit more negative in approach to this match, just because obviously points are essential. I mean, I'm kind of curious. I'm not sure that that's going to be what we end up doing, by the way, but I'm curious how you guys think Lecce will line up. It seems like mainly a 4-3-3 so far. Do you think any change in tactic? Do you think the approach is too much different, or is it we've gotten results from this formation, we're going to kind of try the same approach out again?
I think we'd like to line up as we've done. It's sort of back to that phrase, don't fix what's not broken and stuff like that. So I think we will need a straight out swap for obviously our captain now, but
yeah,
I think it's also all comes down to squad depth, doesn't it? And that's, unfortunately, being one of the smaller clubs in the league, and you're not going to have 6, top class defenders ready to just drop in, like some of the big guys are. So when you get an injury or there is a red card, then you do see a bit of a difference straight away, which is the slight worry going into the game. But it's just that whole, we're in such a positive attitude at the minute that it feels like we could beat anyone. You'd much rather play Juventus next week. If we get a good win on Friday, you're feeling really good. That's the perfect time to play against Juventus, as opposed to 5-6 games in the start of last year. We picked up 2 points. I think we got spanked a couple of times as well. Sort of, it was a bit of a harsh start for us. But this year it's cracking. It's a good place to be. But yeah, it does worry you having one player out.
Yeah.
I think if you could pick one player to not have missing, he would be in the top 2 or 3 on most people's lips, because he's just a plug in and go, isn't he? He's not a new player, so we know what we're getting with him. And he was very good last year, again, albeit next to him TT, who probably helped him out a lot. But he was going to be the one to take over that leadership of the back line. He's been the captain of the last 2 games. He would be the one, I think, that you'd say, let's not lose him. I don't want to come across as the negative and dampen the fire of these two too much, but I think I personally would rather be solid and nick a goal rather than trying to go against you guys and have a bit of a slugfest and try and outscore each other. I still feel like we can produce a defensive performance just because we did have to do it for 40 minutes against Monza, and they have like quite a good plethora of attacking options, and for us to hold out for near enough a half with that player less, I think we have to take that into consideration. So that maybe add a little bit more fuel to your optimism. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep our feet on the ground, as you can tell. Zach and Dom are a little bit more we're going to win the league, whereas I've supported Arsenal for too long. I've been let down by them to really get carried away by my football team. So I'm just trying to pump the brakes somewhat. But he, as I said, I think he's the one. He's the key, isn't he?
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. It'll be, I mean, for us too, like this past match was a really interesting one. We were thinking probably more of a Christmas tree type lineup, which is how we've been getting results the past few matches. And we trotted out a 4-4-1-1, I guess, or 4-4-2. I don't know how you want to think about it, but how Giardino approaches this match is going to be interesting too, because it's obviously the dynamic is very different. We maybe don't need to be quite as focused on being solid at the back, but at the same time, I wouldn't expect us to be going super open with this one either. So there'll be something to watch for sure.
I don't think it will be Gilardino looking at it from a negative perspective. I think it's more a mentality thing, also from the player and nervousness and so on. But, could be, it's just my sorry, Will, go ahead.
No, I was just literally going to follow on to Matt's point that I think this may be one where both managers and both coaching staff are saying this is a don't lose game.
Yeah.
So whereas you may have been able to, before the game, I imagine you guys are being told, like, let's just go for it. Let's just attack and see what they've got. And much like us against, maybe Lazio and Fiorentina, etc., it's really just go out there and see if you can sucker punch these bigger teams. Whereas when you are playing, as we mentioned, probably a positional rival towards the end of the season, it's a must not lose. So it could be one where both coaches do say, let's keep it tight and see, maybe take it deep and see what happens towards the second half of the first half or the second half of the game. It's just me sort of thinking out loud. I don't think it will be much of a differentiation of what we do, but I do think both of our coaches will be saying, make sure you're being sensible with this one.
Yeah.
And definitely the subs will make the difference as well, I think. Okay, so I think we're at a wrap. Well, first of all, thank you for coming. It was a blast, and it was great to get to know you guys. If people wanted to reach out to you, how do they reach out to US Lecce Fans UK?
It's literally that. Our Instagram is official UK Lecce, all one word. And yeah, we try and keep it fairly active. And I've got a bit of a superstition about posting. I only want to post for wins. And there was areas of last season where we didn't post for about 8 or 9 weeks. So we then said, if it's a positive draw, then we'll post. So, and we try and keep as active as possible and try and do like some silly posts and, taking the mickey out of other teams sort of thing. So we don't take it too seriously. But so it's official UK Lecce on Instagram.
So are you saying you're superstitious? Is that you got that from the Italians? No.
I'm telling you, it's Arsenal. Arsenal have ruined my optimism.
All right. Thank you guys very much for joining us. It was a pleasure meeting you. We'll definitely, when we put the post out for the pod and so on, I'll put the link for your page as well. Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. Let's connect together also for after the match.
Fine, yeah. Well, you definitely got a couple of extra Genoa fans after Friday. You'll have some extra fans supporting you for the rest of the season. So, yeah, you've gained a couple of extra followers for sure.
All right. So, thank you guys very much for joining us. Like I say at the end of each pod, everybody, you can reach us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Drop us any comments, any likes, send us also private messages. And never forget, always and forever, Forza Genoa. You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.